Hey guys, how you doing? This is the Universal Order Show. I am your host, the Bronx Paladin, and today there unfortunately are no guests, and so it is that time again where I put everyone to sleep because everybody likes to ignore Grandpa's stories. So it is time for another episode of The Old Man Tales. So, where last we left off, I was halfway through the Burning Crusade, and we went through the history of the guild, how it was formed, the guild that we were in before, and let's continue. The last story I said in the last one was talking about the Druid story, and there's been many more since, but that was what birthed the hatred. Now, back then, I was a far more stubborn and unmoving person than I am now. Back in back in the Crusade when I was running the guild, I came up with so many stupid ideas for handling loot. I didn't want to use a dragon kill point system, but yet I thought it fun to make my own. I came up with a rank system. I said, okay, the higher ranks get to roll first. People that were here more consistently. Anything that was, considered a rare drop. You want people that are going to stay and use it. But that wound up not going over so well. For anybody that raided back in the Crusade, there was, of course, the mythical trinket from Gru's Lair, the Dragon Spine Trophy. Highly sought after and nearly never dropped. In the entire history of the guild raiding Gru's Lair for a solid year, we had it drop twice. And the first time it dropped, we had a crazy way of distributing it. I had it so that only members of a certain rank could do it. I specifically said that I want people that, even though everybody deserved it, which is how I do things now, I wanted people that I knew were seniors, were going to be in the guild, be in the next raid to have it. And that is not the way to do things. But mistakes were made, lessons were learned. So, another thing that I was infamous for was I did not want to skip content. I didn't think that that was how rating should be. I did not want to say, okay, we can't get this boss. Let's go to another raid that's supposed to be higher level or higher difficulty. Try to do the easy bosses of that one to get more equipment for the previous one. So let's explain. At the time, the guild was working on Lady Vaj of Serpentine Caverns. We had consistently defeated all previous encounters, and we just could not strike the finishing blow on her. We kept running out of time, running out of space. Many things went wrong. And of course, repetition, as I'm sure any person who raids knows, that no matter how often you get to that low mark, frustration, fatigue, a number of factors can affect your performance. And you start, instead of going to 20%, you start wiping at 50 or even 70 because you're just sick of the fight. You do stupid things. So that was unfortunately what prevented us from defeating Lady Vaj. We pretty much had nearly anything you could get from the Serpentine Caverns and the Tempest Keep, with the exception of Kael'thas. Now, we had not defeated him either, but we weren't working on him. We were just working on Lady Vaj. We wanted to keep it simple. We got every other encounter down. And for the most part, we got every drop that we could, minus maybe everybody was missing a piece or two tops. It happens. So gear wasn't the issue. Something we were doing was just not working. And unfortunately, that was the start of a very slippery slope downhill. So the raids to finish the expansion, well, first of all, Serpentine and Tempest Keep were a part of Tier 5. The Battle for Mount Hyjal and the Black Temple were Tier 6. And eventually, they came out with the Sunwall Plateau, which was Tier 6.5, maybe? I don't know. So they removed attunement for these raids. Previously, you would have to defeat Lady Vaj and Kael'thas to gain a token that would allow you entrance into the Battle for Mount Hyjal and ultimately the Black Temple. Now, again, back then I was extremely stubborn. I thought that it would have been embarrassing to go to those raids just to do the first couple bosses, to get higher level equipment, to then go back and have that carry us through the encounter. Because we, for the most part, knew the fight. We just were doing something wrong. And I still feel like I would have made that decision today. I mean, we have amazing people in the guild. I'm very grateful, and I still have no idea why people have remained for as long as they did, but I'm grateful. So after doing this for, I don't know, a few months maybe, there was a mutiny that was a long time coming. So a priest by the name of Gertie had led a force of equally angry people or disappointed, whatever the case may be, and formed a new guild called Unholy Destiny. They went straight to the Black Temple. I think they did a couple of the first encounters, maybe up to the giant, I can't remember his name, which was what, the third encounter? And I think that was it. So, but it was something new. It was a change of scenery, and that's something that we really should have done. And while I do hold true to the belief that we should not have to skip, we shouldn't need equipment from the next raid to do a previous raid, maybe we should have done it anyway. So, another mistake that hopefully I don't make again, or have the need to make again. Alright, so after that went down, we of course didn't even have enough to raid Karazhan. Like, everybody left. So only myself and a couple people remained to carry the name of Universal Order. So, with not much really to do, I think I wound up just hanging out with a couple of other guilds. I didn't leave. I just, helped out people here and there. And so that brings us to the image you see before you, Dalaran, of the Wrath of the Lich King. So in that expansion, we managed to recruit a few people. And we had some returning players. So we had enough to do 10-player content, which was normal. Before they came up with difficulties for raiding, you either had a raid size of 10 or 25. No in between. So we were just able to scrape together a 10-man, 10-person raiding team. And of course, as is usually the case, at the beginning of an expansion where there's a new class, especially a hero class, such a lovely term, uh, I think 6 out of 10 for the rating unit was Death Knights. Made it work though. We had a couple of priests sprinkled in for healers. Uh, and of course, we had all three representations of the Death Knight, Unholy Blood and Frost. And it was just a good time. It was good to just be able to play, raid, whatever. And we also allied with La Luce de la Notte, another guild, a family guild, a guild that Zenori and I talked about in her interview. So eventually, through the partnership, we had enough people to go through the 25 version of Naxxramas. And again, back then, since that was the only difference in difficulty was the size of the rating unit, we got to see a different side of the raid. So that made it interesting. The things that you had to do slightly differently in some cases, or just completely off the wall crazy in others. And definitely salute Blizzard. And honestly, everybody involved, because I think the Hagen the Unclean encounter made the dancing songs just popular all over again. I mean, you have the "You Could Dance If You Want" a song. You have uh, the Jamiroquai, if I'm even saying that right, song, or Canned Heat. But Jamiroquai was the band, and then Canned Heat was the song. We even played, and this was before I even knew how to transmit music over Ventrilo, which is what we used to communicate back then. But I used to just hold my speaker up to my microphone and go on YouTube and play these songs. Was it was so pathetic. But that's why this is called Old Man Tales, because I did old man things. I didn't know technology, but it was still fun. We had a great time progressing through that raid. The Eye of Eternity, I believe, uh, was next in the Caldera. I'm using, let me zoom up here, using the Barricade of Eternity here. No, that's not the Barricade of Eternity. Oh, that's right, that's the Old War weapon. Actually, the whole outfit, everything about this from Old War, so yeah, I might as well get to that after. And that family guild that I was talking about before, the leader who raided with his, okay, so the son was the raid leader. There was he had his parents there, and then he recently got a kid, and he couldn't devote as much time, obviously. So I don't know what became of them. I really do miss them. They were really good people, a nice Italian family, and I just have no idea where they went. Just vanished one day. The only thing I can remember was the name or the word heart was in the leader's name. Unfortunately, beyond that, I've gone through several computers since the days of Wrath, and unfortunately, OneDrive or things like it did not exist back then, so I didn't save a thing. I used to keep my old hard drives to transfer over stuff, but haven't bothered with that in a long time. So slowly, the people that had left for Unholy Destiny actually did find their way back. I I think there was a lot of internal strife that happened in the guild. And I think one of the things that kind of killed it was the pursuit of glory. And to explain that one, shortly after the expansion started, and of course everybody makes a mad dash to cap level, which at the time was 80, Gertie had assembled a few of her people, Unholy Destiny, and just people around the server. Just various guilds. I think she just threw out a random invite, whatever. Whatever could make it happen. And she led a group, props to her, against Sartharian, if I'm saying that right, which was a dragon in the Ruby Sanctum. So it was an optional side fight that you could do. I really wish Blizzard would bring things like that back. And back then, there were achievements and titles associated with being the first group of people to defeat an encounter. And they managed to claim it. I don't quite remember what it was, what the achievement was called. I think Old War was Delver of the Vaults, or was that the Mogashan Vaults? Actually, that probably is the Mogashan Vaults. But you get what I'm saying. There were titles and achievements and glory, blah blah blah. And I believe since she had invited so many random people, that maybe some of her own were not included in this. And so this is the best I could piece together. And again, this was many, many years ago, so I could be completely wrong, but that's as far as I can remember. Ravenholt drama. So after that, we went through Naxxramas several times in the 24 player size, 25 player. The Eye of Eternity, 10s and 25s. Just spam it. And one of the things about Naxxramas, well, first of all, just to rewind a tiny bit for those who don't remember, achievements were added to the game at the end of the Crusade. And so with achievements, some of them give optional rewards, such as titles, vanity pets before they made the actual battle pet system in Miss Pandaria, and other bits and bobs. So one of the titles was the Undying and I believe the Immortal. For completing Naxxramas with the 10 player size and the 25 player size without dying a single time. Nobody in the raid could die. Now, we did the Undying run, which was the 10 player version. We were an inch away from the 25 player version, the Immortal. Unfortunately, one of our people decided to do a little boo-boo on Kel'Thuzad. So we made it through the entire raid without a death until like the last, I don't know, maybe 20% of Kel'Thuzad. And it was like, well, that's the run. And understandably so, the person who made the boo-boo was so embarrassed and flustered that they just logged off. And I think we didn't see them for like a week. Sparrow, wherever you are, we miss and love you. Oh, I miss those days. And then that leads us to the outfit I'm wearing. Old War, easily my favorite raid in the game. I love it, I miss it, and I miss the idea of it. The raid was still using the 10 and 25 player content system. However, they added a new twist to it where you could choose to trigger a special version of an encounter, and they dubbed it hard mode. And so not all of them had this, but maybe half, for the sake of argument, we'll just say half of the fights had a hard mode associated with it, where you have to do something to trigger it, and then fight a more difficult version of the encounter. So it got crazy. But the idea of it, I thought, was amazing. Instead of worrying about an entire new difficulty, an entire new raid, you fought the same fight just under a different set of rules in some cases. Or the same fight with maybe two more mechanics thrown in just to really throw things for a loop. I do miss that. And for no sensible reason, I believe I enjoyed that version of difficulty as opposed to heroic and mythic. I understand why they needed to separate the difficulties. I understand why they need to create layers of a fight. But when you're going through the same fights over and over again, and it's just something different when it's its own category. I don't know. I'm not making any sense, but it's just how I felt. And Old War was a great time. It really was. I had so much fun in that raid. We had such a great group of people, and we, for the most part, we did the 10 player size. And every now and then we would invite people from the server to supplement us so that we could do the 25. And we would do a little bit. But for the most part, we were content to just stay with the 10 player size. It was easier to manage, and you didn't need to constantly recruit people to fill your numbers. That was a big help. When you're on a small server, getting 20 people to do current mythic, it's very punishing and very demoralizing. When skill, when you have so few people to draw from, the the pool of skill that you have to draw from, it just varies. You have a group of people that are, decent, and you have people that belong in Raid Finder, to put it simple. When you're on a huge server like Mal'Ganis, Emerald Dream, Illidan, where they're constantly full, where you're having to wait in queue just to be able to play the game, there is such a dense player pool to draw from. So you have every skill range covered. You could be just a heroic guild, and you have people that are satisfied with that. You could be a mythic guild that only clears halfway. People are satisfied. And then of course you have the hardcores. Or those who manage to get it done. Yeah, my view of hardcore is a little different. Those who winning deserves its own respect. But to me, hardcore is just the amount of time you put into it. So, Old War was a ride. We loved it. I was very grateful for it. The final encounter, being able to do that in slightly different ways. You can choose how you want to make it harder. And I believe that was the difference. In current rating, when you go from normal to heroic to mythic, you don't have a choice. 99% of the time. This is the fight and that's it. And that's good. You have encounters that are set in stone. You have timers that everybody relies on and everybody's used to and people can't play without. I can almost guarantee you that the race to world first would be much different if add-ons were shut off, but that's another story. And for trying to remember Yogg-Saron. There you go, that's his name. So Yogg-Saron, there was four keepers, and when you activated them, they gave you a beneficial effect. And when you defeat Yogg-Saron with all four active, that was, regular mode, normal mode. Each time you go in there, you can choose to not have one or more of the benefits of the keepers. And that gradually affected the difficulty. And the ultimate goal was to zero light the uh the fight, which is what they called it back then, where you have no help. Everything is extremely difficult because you don't have all the counters that you're used to, all the benefits, all the buffs. So that made the fight way harder. However, doing a zero light Yogg-Saron was, I believe, a feat of strength. That I mean, that was it's in and of itself a world first race back then. I can't remember the guild that managed to do it, but obviously, congratulations to them. And I think you only needed to defeat Yogg-Saron with one light to get the highest achievement that enabled you to get the mount for the meta. Each raid has achievements that you have to complete in order to get a mount from that raid. So those are the kind of things that I love about achievements. I used to be very, very hard-headed in my pursuit of them, but I have thankfully calmed down quite a bit. So after the Old War, things got a little weird. We went from that to the Trial of the Crusader, which would eventually be a lead up into Icecrown Citadel, taking the fight to the Lich King himself. Now, the way they handled the Trial of the Crusader, I wasn't too big of a fan of. You did it, first of all, when it came out, they only released one boss a week. And I think it was a 5 boss encounter. Maybe. So, I might be wrong. I think it might have been on normal mode. You did, uh, you could have all the bosses, but then heroic, you had to wait. Hmm. That's gonna bother me now. I'm not quite remembering how that worked. And I'm also trying to remember if Trial of the Crusader was the first raid to introduce the heroic difficulty. I know that Icecrown Citadel did, or had normal and heroic, but I don't remember if Trial of the Crusader did. I just remember that in Trial of the Crusader, on what I believe to be heroic, and again, I believe that's when they introduced it, they had a system in place where they had a death counter up. And I think you had 25 chances, maybe, to clear the raid um, before you blow your chances. And then how often or how many chances you had left would determine the quality of the loot of the treasure chests at the end of the raid. And I know that we had done all but the final boss, whatever that beetle dude was. Really trying to remember his name, but I can't. I'd have to look at my achievements, but that's work. I know. Should have done research before, but old man tales. I need to have a cane with me instead of a drink. Shout out to Animaker, by the way. I'm drunk because of you. So after Trial of the Crusade, things were starting to get a little stagnant, but then, and this is what I loved about content back then. You would get a raid and then some stuff to do on the side. That made it a little bit more bearable. You would do the raid, you would go do something, and if it's just when you have to do a grind just for the power creep, that's no fun because you have to do it. If you want your character to be stronger for the raid, then you have to do it. But when it's optional and you can choose to not do it, you can choose to take a stab at it every now and then. That's when it becomes fun because, like, you know what? My friends are grinding for a minion or a mount or something. I'm bored. I don't feel like raiding, or maybe their raid allotment was used up or whatever. A lockout, that's what I meant. You know what? I'll join my friends. I don't really care for this content. I don't care for the mount, but you know what? We get to do something. We get to hang out. It's something to do. You know what I'm saying? And that's nice when there's something optional on the side to do. You don't want to do it? Fine. Go play another game. In World of Warcraft, you can only loot a boss in a raid once per difficulty, or at least that that's the way it is now. Um, Back then, I think when they started to introduce the difficulties, the rules were kind of skewed where you can only loot a boss once, regardless of difficulty. I might be wrong on that, but that's what I remember. I just remember once you chose a difficulty, or maybe it was size, and then that was it. I don't know. It was a long time ago. So either way, we we did that for a while. The Argent Tournament Grounds, which was the side content that they released on top of it, and all of that leading up to the Iceground Citadel. And I gotta say, I was able to appreciate a side system that they did, which was a legendary, to be able to get a legendary weapon. Now, in the Burning Crusade, the Warglaze of Azonoth were an item that you could get from Illidan Stormrage, wearable by rogues and warriors. So, when the counterpart to Frostmourne came out, Shadowmourne, and anybody that could wear a two-handed weapon, which I believe was just Retribution Paladins and, of course, a Death Knight. Maybe a warrior too? Yeah, warriors too. Yeah, whoever could wear a two-handed axe. It wasn't a drop. It was an adventure with a couple of steps that were complete and total bullshit. Actually, you know what? To anybody that has tried to make Shadowmourne, I'm sure we can all agree that the hands down worst step of that weapon was the vampire step. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. But hey, we got through it. We got a weapon. It was nice. It had a bunch of gem sockets. We could do stuff to it. It was fun. And one more story before I snap my fingers and everybody wakes up from the boredom of hearing Grandpa talk. So this is a shout out to a former guild member that we had. Has been gone ever since this story. So we were progressing on Heroic Citadel. Oh, and one little tiny detail. When they introduced Heroic, they made the 10-player Heroic and the 25-player Heroic which sparked a lot of heated arguments on the forums because each encounter, it was either easier or harder on each version. Like, for example, some fights were easier with the 10-player heroic version, and some fights were easier with the 25 heroic version, based on mechanics that would happen or the frequency at which abilities happened, whatever the case may be. There was huge debates about this, which is why we now have the system that we do where it's 20. That's it. No more, no less. But that's we'll get into the 20-man stuff at another time. So for Ice Crown Citadel, we were progressing on the 10-player heroic version. And for the longest time, we were stuck on Professor Putricide. That was a very difficult fight for that size. And the meta achievement to get the mount for that raid required you to do every single encounter on heroic except for the Lich King Arthas. So for us, it was we needed Putricide and then Sindragosa, the Frostworm. So the whatever tank that we had at the time couldn't be there for whatever reason. I don't remember what happened. And we had a fill-in for that role. Now this person, first of all, his character name was Zachnafane. And he was somewhat of a legend in the guild. Not only was he just an absolute badass of a warrior, he was notoriously lucky. His luck rivaled that of the druid of our guild, Ragnar. I mean, it was legendary, where he would start a fight, charge in, die, and still win loot. I should have kept everything away from him. There were times where his numbers were just absolutely insane. When he was alive. He really was a good player, but there was some things he did that was absolutely batshit crazy. So his brother, Bovine, would tank for us at times. I don't remember if he was the tank of the Citadel. He may have been. But something happened, and him and his wife, Bovine's wife, Alexandria, they couldn't be there for whatever reason. So Zachnafane actually volunteered to tank, and he was our tank for the Putricide encounter. And I would say after maybe 3 weeks of progressing back to Putricide, getting a piece here and there, and then we finally got him, and it was a glorious day for us, because that fight was ridiculous. So shortly after the fight ended and the equipment was distributed, he said over Ventrilo that his girlfriend was calling him, was doing a booty call, and see ya. That was maybe 10 years ago, and we ain't heard from him since. I have asked his brother and sister-in-law. They don't know what happened to him either. He's alive, but just up and vanished one day, and that was it. So there's one other person in our guild that kind of did the I'm gonna go get laid and disappear for 5-year thing. Zachnafane was an absolute beast of a legend in the guild in the old days of Universal Order. We miss him, his brother Bovine, his sister-in-law. Alexandria was. I have a feeling I'm saying that name wrong. I'm getting. I know bovine, but the priest. I don't know. I don't know why I'm. Maybe because I'm just so used to calling everybody by their actual name because I want to treat people like people. So yeah, we had a hell of a time in Escrown Citadel. And also, one last thing before I head out for the night. When you make an item that is sought after by half of your player base, and you only make it drop one at a time and rarely at that, that causes a lot of problems. So, unfortunately, I don't remember what the name of the trinket was, but on the fourth encounter of the Ice Crown Citadel, when you fought uh, Saurfang, or the son of Saurfang, again, I'm drawing a blank on the name there. He dropped an armor penetration trinket for melee, and everybody and their mother wanted it. People would join raids just for a chance at that one trinket, and as soon as that fight was over, they would all leave. It was a shame, too, because the raid was good, but everybody only wanted that one trinket. Not only did that help them a bit in regular raiding, but it was pretty much broken in arena. To have something that would allow you to bypass the armor of your enemy was huge. I mean, you had melee armor penetration, you had spell penetration for the casters, but this one trinket must have given so much that it was just unfair when it procced. Like you were, it was an I win button in a way. So I get it that it was so heavily sought after. But to put that in the middle of a raid just to have everybody leave after, that's not fun. I'm sure there are examples of that in current raiding. Maybe an end boss has a trinket or a weapon. But I cannot remember anything being nearly as bad as the Dragonspine trophy from Gruul in Crusade and whatever the hell the trinket was called from the fourth boss in Ice Crown. And thank you very much, shout out and love to our guild Shaman May for telling me that it is Deathbringer as well. That trinket can go die in a fire for all the pain and drama it caused. There shouldn't be something that broken and amazing that can kill a guild if it doesn't drop, or can kill a guild over it dropping, whatever the case may be. So, all right, that for the most part is the story of our guild in Wrath of the Lich King. Thankfully, for the most part, it was a drama-free expansion. Some issues here and there, mostly towards the end of Ice Crown, when maybe there was a little bit of burnout going on. And I do know that there were a few who did not agree with my decision. Looking back at it, I didn't agree with my decision either, which was once we got Heroic Sendrigosa down, which was the final requirement for the Mount Meta achievement, I honestly didn't even bother with the Heroic Lich King. And I do agree that that was a mistake. But we were fighting Putricide for so long. I wanted to be done with the expansion. Yeah. So, hope you enjoyed some stories. I hope at least one or two of you are still awake. And if not, I hope you got a good nap. I am your host, the Bronx Paladin. This has been another episode of the Old Man Tales. Thank you for your time, and until next time.